Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Well, good evening at this point. It's like 7 o'clock. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Good evening, everyone. Okay, so we're going to let a couple more people get in here and then I'm going to start a discussion because there are some interesting things that have come out via the Trump administration, such as, a payroll tax moratorium, rent moratoriums from the CDC. A lot of things that have come out here. A lot of people are celebrating, and there's really nothing to really be celebrating at this point. There's a lot of things to unpack here, so we're gonna let a couple more people get in here, and then I'm gonna start kind of unpacking this stuff because this is not a celebratory day as some people might think. So, okay. So, as people are starting to trickle in here, I want to have a bit of a discussion on some of the things that are kind of coming out from the Trump administration that, I find people talking about it in the community. I find people definitely celebrating this stuff and definitely very excited about this stuff. And, I think that people don't really understand the overall economic situation that's going on here. So I really want to talk this all the way through and help people really understand what this really means, right? So the first thing I want to cover is this deferred payroll tax obligation that the Trump administration signed over the weekend. So the Trump administration over the weekend signed a deferred payroll tax obligation, which means that for the rest of the year, if you make less than $4,000 biweekly, you can elect not to pay payroll taxes at the federal level. Now, this sounds great, right? This is a great, wonderful thing that people are celebrating, and they're like, yay, I don't have to pay taxes. I don't have to pay my payroll taxes. Okay. So there is a difference between a payroll tax deferral and a payroll tax erasure. This is not erasing payroll taxes in that they're saying, hey, you don't have to pay payroll taxes for the rest of the year. We're forgiving payroll taxes for the rest of the year. That's not what this is. This is not payroll tax forgiveness for the year. This is a deferral. So think of it like when you apply for a job and you're an employee and you fill out that those employee documents. They generally ask you what your how you're filing, right? Are you filing single, claiming one, single, claiming two? Are you married? All of these different filing statuses. Well, there's also a filing status that you can file that's called exempt. And when you file for exemption, right, then you're not subject to having to pay those payroll taxes, but at the end of the year, you have to pay them, right? Because that's how that works, right? So you're exempt right until you file your taxes. And then as soon as you file your taxes and they realize that you're not exempt, you get a tax bill. This is very much that, right? So don't get excited because the fact of the matter is, one thing about it, there are two things that are inescapable, right? In this life, if you are a United States citizen, it's death and it's the IRS. You do not escape them. They are undefeated. The IRS gets their money. And one thing I can tell you, right, is that if you elect to defer your payroll taxes, you most definitely will get a bill at the end of the year. You will be subject to a tax bill. So, from my standpoint, looking at this, it is not a good idea to defer your taxes. Not a good idea. Don't do that. Do not defer your taxes. Do not elect the payroll tax deferral obligation. You will be subject to having to pay that at the end of the year. It is non-negotiable. You will pay. You will get a tax bill. Now, here's the other thing, right? So the thing that makes an economy work is taxes, right? So GDP is based on consumer spending patterns and taxes, right? That's what runs a country, tax collection. So I think what people really don't realize here is now or later you will pay. You're going to pay the tax bill now, then later. But what's going to happen is, because remember, all those people that elect to defer their taxes up until the tax deferral period ends, right? The government is not able to collect that tax revenue, right, on a quarterly basis. So they're not able to do the things that they normally would do because they don't have the income that they would normally have. So how do you think they're going to compensate for that? For those of you who participate in my discussion, the path towards successful investing, one of the things I talked about was inflation, right? So we inflate usually about 3% a year. Here's reality, right? What do you think the government's going to do if they are not collecting the tax revenue that they need to be collecting to provide the services that they need to provide? They're going to issue more currency into the market. And when they issue more currency into the market, right, it's going to dilute the value of the currency. And by doing that, inflation is going to go up. So deferring payroll taxes is not going to do anybody any justice, because at the end of the day, if you do not pay your payroll taxes now, you're going to get hit with inflation, because the inflationary number will go up as the government begins to print more currency into the market that they do not have gross domestic product to support. And at that point in time, right, as inflation goes up, your purchasing power goes down. Inflation is considered a hidden tax. So at that point in time, you're getting taxed twice. You're going to get taxed in inflation and get taxed, right, on that large ass tax bill that you're going to get because you deferred your payroll taxes and will be subject to having to pay those taxes at a later time. Which segues me into another very important aspect that nobody is considering right now, that's celebrating. Everybody is celebrating the fact that the CDC issued a nationwide moratorium on rent payments. You don't have to pay your rent in the event that you if there's a corona-related issue that would make it difficult for you to be able to pay your rent. You don't have to pay. Okay, let's talk about that, right? That sounds great. Oh, you don't have to pay your rent now. Okay, that's a deferral. That's a deferral. By the way, that's a deferral. So guess what happens? When that rent moratorium ends, you now have a rent bill that you have to pay. So if your rent, right, is, let's say, I don't know, $2,000 a month, and you defer, right, for 6 months, you now, congratulations, you owe a considerable amount of money. It's $12,000 if you defer for 6 months. They want that money. Now, here's the other thing, right? And this is for you that invest in real estate and actually have tenants, right? Here's the thing that people aren't really considering. A lot of small real estate investors that own real estate that depend on those rents to be able to satisfy their mortgage obligations, right? Let's look into that, right? If these people are not paying rent, then you are not generating the revenue necessary to be able to satisfy your mortgage obligations. Right? Now you can't satisfy your mortgage obligation. So now you're getting 30 days, 60 days, and 90 days on your credit, right? Because you're paying late. And now you're in a position to where now the bank can start issuing what's called a notice of default, notice of trust deed sale. You can start losing assets simply because of a rent moratorium. This thing goes a lot deeper than people realize, right? So then people are asking, okay, what about a mortgage moratorium? Okay, make that make sense, right? So you have to understand understand how the bank works when it comes to lending, right? So when a bank lends money, right, to someone on an asset, what happens is that asset is secured, that loan is secured by the asset. And at that point in time that they file a lien against the asset, what we call perfecting a lien, at the point in time that they perfect that lien, they get issued what's called a straight note. That straight note is the asset-backed security. That is called a collateralized mortgage obligation. The performance of that collateralized mortgage obligation or that straight note, right, is dependent on the mortgagee's ability to continue to be able to service the interest payment obligations. At the point in time that the mortgagee is no longer able to pay the interest payments, that note goes from performing to non-performing. And once a note becomes non-performing on a lender's balance sheet, they are no longer able to use it as collateral to be able to borrow against from other institutions. They're not able to now pledge those as collateral for things like overnight repo, commercial paper, etc., etc. Do you really think financial institutions are going to allow a situation whereby a complete mortgage moratorium would be issued, which would prevent them from collecting interest payments? Do you really think that's going to happen? Make it make sense. So this legislation, or not even legislation, this executive order that was signed is truly a disaster. What you're really doing is pushing back the cliff, right? And heightening the fall. That's all you're doing here. You're pushing back the cliff and heightening the fall. Because the reality of the situation at this very point in time is, right, that if you deferred your taxes, if you deferred your rent, you've got two big bills coming now that you are more than likely not going to be able to satisfy. Make that make sense. If you defer your rent, if you do not pay your rent because of this moratorium on rent, you will have to pay it later. You're going to have to pay it later. A mortgage moratorium is simply just not in the cards. It's not realistic. The truth of the situation is, given the fact that these deferrals are going to get substantial obligations that will be due later in payroll taxes and mortgage payment, rental payments that will be due in one lump sum, there are going to be a lot of evictions. The eviction rate is going to go through the roof. That's a fact. And people that are invested in real estate, that have tenants, that are small-scale real estate investors, you better be showing up at 3 p.m. every Sunday that I'm going over this discussion on credit, because you are going to need it. Because your inability to be able to service your mortgage payments, right, because of the fact that your tenants do not have to pay rent, is going to be a very real situation for you. You will get late payments. You will come close to default. This is real. This is not a joke. And I'm telling you, here's the other thing. If you depend on the cash flows from your rent to be able to do maintenance because you were smart enough to set up a maintenance fund, right? Now, if there are issues, you have to reach into your maintenance fund to continue to service your interest payment obligations as long as you possibly can. Which means now, if something breaks in the house, you no longer have the disposable income in your maintenance fund to be able to pay for those things. And now, right, you have to reach into your personal pockets. A lot of small real estate investors still work 9 to 5s. They still have bills to pay. They still have their own mortgages. They still have their own credit card obligations. They still have their own lifestyle to maintain. And so chances are a lot of smaller real estate investors are not going to have the disposable income to be able to make those maintenance repairs. So what happens when a house goes into disrepair? Eventually it becomes deemed uninhabitable. And if it's uninhabitable, now you're subject to fines from the city. So this shit gets very, very real very, very quickly. It's going to get very real. So when people ask me, hey, Fredrick, do you think that we are getting ready to get into a recession? Do you think there's going to be a housing crash? I think that this recession is going to be potentially deeper than 2008. And that's real. There have been a lot of mistakes made at the federal and state level as far as handling this situation, and this kicking the bucket down the road, this putting a Band-Aid on it for now and dealing with it later, unless they're going to come all the way across the board and say that we're forgiving obligations all the way across the board, right? There is no way to prevent what at this point in time is an inevitability. And the fact of the matter is, if they come across the board and they say we're forgiving everything, the banks are left holding the bag, and the bank never loses. So the reality of the situation is they're going to say we're forgiving all mortgage payments, forgiving all of this stuff for that period of time. Now they have to give the banks a government bailout to cover the interest payment deficit that was created to keep those notes performing. If they give banks a government bailout, guess what happens? That is funded from tax money. So guess who pays for that? You do, with an increase in your taxes. So everybody around here that's celebrating this stuff, right, needs to stop celebrating and get real. Because this thing is about to get real. More stimulus. Okay, is more stimulus the answer? Which, by the way, if you guys can please use the question mark icon in the lower left-hand corner to ask questions, that'd be greatly appreciated. Now, is stimulus the answer? Well, let's think about what stimulus is. Stimulus is the government issuing money, right, that you have not earned, right, to help you stave off your temporary situation. Issuing money that is not backed by GDP does nothing but then raise the inflation rate. So guess what? You are paying for it through the increase of inflation. It is a hidden tax. What you don't realize is the stimulus money that you're getting, you are paying for with your taxes. It's your tax money that they're just loaning to you for a temporary period of time, and they're going to raise the inflation rate, and you're going to pay for it with the decrease in or the depreciation in purchasing power. That's reality. So when you see that, you were able to buy gas at $2 a gallon, let's say, and all of a sudden gas is at $3 a gallon, it's because the United States government and companies that import oil from overseas have to spend more US dollars, right, to get that in, because we have printed more money than we have GDP to support. And inflation has gone up. So you pay. Consumers always pay. Retail market always pays. That's how this works. That is reality. Let's see. Was Dave Ramsey right all along? Unfortunately, I don't really follow Dave Ramsey like that, so I can't opine to that one way or the other, because I really don't follow him like that. But what I'm telling you now is, even the accounting board has questions about this payroll tax deferral. I mean, there are some major questions here and some major concerns. Even employers, companies are looking at this mess with a side eye because they understand what this is going to mean. This is going to erode consumer consumption of products, which is going to hurt their revenues, which with a dip in revenue, they're going to have to do layoffs. This is reality, right? So we are essentially deepening what's going to be a recession at this point. We've already begun a recessionary trend. We're just deepening the pit at this point. So the reality of the situation is stop damn celebrating. There is nothing to celebrate here. You will pay for this 2 or 3 times in 2 or 3 different ways, 2 or 3 times over. Nothing to celebrate. Save your money. Save your money. Invest your money. You get some stimulus money. This is not the time to go buying, every weave pattern in the store. This ain't the time to get a fresh haircut every 5 minutes or every single pair of Jordans that was ever invented in history. This ain't the time for that. This is the time to be saving your dollars. You need to be budgeting your dollars. You need to be creating emergency funds. You need to be deploying those savings that you have into safe securities like index funds or ETFs that are tied to the S&P 500 or the Dow Jones Industrial Average, right? That are managed by competent, qualified money managers like Fidelity, like Vanguard, like T. Rowe Price. These are the types of things that you need to be doing at this point. Now, as consumer confidence and as consumer consumption in products begins to fall, you're going to see a dip in revenue. A dip in revenue is going to push securities prices down. It's going to push stock prices down. When you start seeing a sell-off in the market, you need to diversify away from your securities portfolio, and you need to begin to start looking at index funds that invest in fixed income securities, bonds, stable, predictable returns. Diversify away your risk, diversify your asset classes, and put your seatbelt on. It's getting ready to be a bumpy ride. That's reality. That is reality today. And so I've been looking at this stuff. I've been looking at the numbers in the Bureau of Labor Statistics. I look at the jobs reports. I'm looking at the different things that are passing. And I gotta be honest with you, this is a shit show in the making. Do not be fooled by these temporary Band-Aid measures. There is no such thing as free lunch. And I am a student, a of power, and one thing I can tell you, one of the laws is despise the free lunch. Despise it. Nothing is free when it comes to the economy, when it comes to any type of stimulus. Nothing free. Nothing free. It all has strings attached. And just because you get it today, you will pay for it 2 or 3 times over later. And that's reality. Okay, is now the time to start my business plan. Bruh, you need to be starting. There's never a bad time to start writing a business plan. Ever. There is never a bad time to do that. There is never a bad time to invest in yourself. I believe the number one investment that you can make in this life is in you. But you got to have core belief in yourself first. See, there are 2 things that you need in this life to succeed, right? Success is driven by 2 things: core belief and strategy. Now, I'm going to talk about this real quick. Core belief and strategy is what creates success in this lifetime, right? And what is core belief, right? So we're going to start with core belief. So core belief is an unshakable, unmovable belief in yourself. It don't matter what anybody is saying. It don't matter what nobody tell you. Can't nobody sway you from doing what it is that you gonna do. And it's gonna be a lot of detractors out there. But if you got a core belief in yourself, you know that you're gonna be able to succeed. No matter what obstacles come your way, you're gonna overcome those obstacles, and you're gonna find a way to keep moving your feet forward, one foot in front of the other, until you get where it is that you want to be. You will go through whatever hell, whatever wall, whatever hill, hill, whatever valley that you got to go through to get where it is that you want to be. And you become deaf to negativity. People that are not sowing positivity in your life, you distance yourself from them because you ain't got time to hear that, because you're not going to allow anybody to knock you off your center, knock you off your square, and stop you from succeeding or detract you from getting where it is that you really want to be. That's reality, right? So that's a core belief, right? And very few people have that. A lot of people say they have core belief, but core belief, that deep down gut check type belief that I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I'm exasperated, I'm frustrated, but I'm going to dig a little deeper and find a way to push forward and find a way to push through. I don't have a problem not sleeping for 3 days to pursue what it is that I'm trying to do because I want to get there. Very few people have that level of core belief and work ethic right there. Very few people have it. A lot of people's lips move in that direction, but a lot of people don't have it, right? So that's real, right? So you got to find that core belief first. See, and then the second part is strategy, right? So you got to be able to strategize your way all the way to the finish line, right? You got to strategize all the way to the end, right? But here's the thing, right? See, a good strategy will help you understand that as long as you keep moving forward, right? You may sometimes make a wrong turn and have to make a U-turn, but a good strategy is a detailed step-by-step plan, right? That will help you get where you want to be. And it has timelines on it, right? So you have a plan, you say in 90 days, I want to be here. And in 90 days at that milestone check, if you're not where you want to be, you have the ability to gut check, sit down, look in the mirror, be honest with yourself that you're not where you're supposed to be, and begin to assess the lessons that you've learned from some of the mistakes that you've made to be able to readjust and realign your strategy to help you meet your next milestone, right? Now, beyond that, right? So that's the kind of strategy you need to plan your way all the way to the end of success. But let me tell you what's real, right? So let me tell you what's real. 90% of success in this life is core belief. Only 10% of it is strategy. But if you do not have core belief, right, you cannot see the fog of doubt. You cannot see beyond the fog of negativity. You cannot see beyond the fog of haters. You cannot see the clear path to the other side. You will get lost in the dark. And the reality of the situation, if you do not have core belief, if you lack core belief, it is impossible for you to strategize your way all the way to the end. You will fail without core belief. Until you get core belief, you will never find the success that it is that you really want to find in this life. And that's reality. And I want you to know and understand that. So to your question of should you be writing a business plan, my question to you, sir, is, since you asked me, should you start writing your business plan? Let me ask you a question. Have you looked in the mirror and checked your core belief? Because if you believe you got the core belief necessary to succeed, I don't care what the hell the economy is doing. It ain't never a bad time to write that business plan if you got that core belief and you willing to put in that time, put in that diligence, put them late nights in. You willing to put the capital into it. You willing to sacrifice what needs to be sacrificed to get where you want to be. And now let me tell you something else too. And here's the other thing that a lot of people really don't understand, right? A lot of people say they want to have a certain amount of money. They want to have millions. They want to have billions. They want to have all of that. That's cool. You don't understand that every level of success that you reach requires a different level of sacrifice. Nothing is free in this life. It's a give and take. So if you want to be $100,000 heir, you don't have to make the same sacrifices that somebody that wants to be a millionaire. Somebody that wants to be a billionaire, a millionaire doesn't have to make the same sacrifices that somebody that wants to be a billionaire. And the level that you decide that you want to be at, you better ask yourself, are you willing to make the sacrifices necessary to get where it is that you want to be? Because one thing that I can tell you, I have made a lot of sacrifices to get where I am. And I can tell you honestly, when I started this journey, right? If somebody would have played the movie in front of me of my life to this point and showed me all the things that I was going to have to go through to get where it is that I am right now, I'm not so sure I would have taken this journey. Yeah, I'm on the other side now, so it's cool. I done paid prices now. I'm sure I'm going to pay some more, but I done paid those prices already. Them past prices, I done already paid those. But baby, when I first started out, if you would have showed me all of this, I'm not so sure I'd have been able to do this one right here, baby. You going to pay the price. It costs to be the boss. It costs to be successful. It costs to be wealthy. It costs to have a few nickels in your bank. You're going to make some sacrifices. And if you're not ready to sacrifice everything on the line and put it all on the line in the name of success, you're not ready for success. This ride ain't for you. And that's okay. This journey ain't for everybody. This ride ain't for everybody. That's cool. Know what I mean? And somebody got to work. Somebody got to get that 9 to 5. Somebody got to be that W-2 employee. I ain't mad at you. I chose to take a different path. And if it's a path that you want to take, and you're going to have to get out there and get it. Hard body. No sleep. You got to get it. Because every moment you spend sleeping, every moment you spend slacking, every moment you spend being lazy, somebody else out there putting it in, ready to eat your lunch. And the fact of the matter in this situation is, in order for one person to win, a lot of people have to lose. That's reality. So you want to be the winner or you want to be the loser? Every morning in Africa, the lion wakes up and the gazelle wakes up. And they both run all day long. But at the end of the day, somebody will be eaten. So the question is, are you the lion or are you the gazelle? It's very straightforward. Know what I mean? Let's get to some of these questions here. Let's see. Should people be moving back home with their parents? Well, I guess that depends on your personal financial situation now, doesn't it? Now, the reality of the situation is if you're looking at your personal financial situation and you realize that pandemic unemployment assistance is the only thing that's keeping you above float and your parents are willing to take you back home, it might be smart for you to go back home so you can lower your expenses, right? And be able to save and invest some money and put yourself in a better position when this pandemic passes to be able to set yourself up for a position to succeed. So that depends on where you are financially. Thank you for the question, by the way. Okay, let's see what else we got here. I will save this live. Don't worry. I will save this live. So, these are the things that I wanted to share with you guys because I think that this is very, 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 very important. I wanted to give you the reality of the situation as it is, right? The facts for what they are. Not the fiction, not the celebration, not the rah-rah, not the, the group of people who, get together and celebrate any free dollar they can get. No, none of that. Because we despise the free lunch around these parts. We get real woke around here. We hashtag get real woke, right? So we're not blinded by the fog and the nonsense and the media and the smoke screens and all of that. We dig through all of the bullshit to get directly to the facts. And these are the facts as they are. So if anybody has any questions, comments, concerns at this point, I'm going to open the floor up for questions. Please feel free to ask questions. I'm going to give, about 2 or 3 minutes here for questions. And then I'm going to go ahead and end this. I'm going to save it. I'm going to re-upload it. And, you know what I mean? Y'all can feel free to rewatch it at any time. Any questions? Okay, I have a thing. I have something. Why don't we do this, right? Does anybody want to go live with me at this point and ask a question or have a discussion about something regarding this topic? Okay, listen, I know that sometimes, when I talk, I'm very direct, I'm very blunt, I'm very to the point. I take what I do very seriously, right? And so I don't hold any cut cards with this. But what I want you to know is that this information I'm putting out for free, right? I'm giving it to y'all. I want you to ask questions. I want you to, feel like you can have a discussion with me. This is a bilateral communication. Yeah, I'm putting out information. Bilateral communication. I was talking about, for those of you who just joined me, I'm talking about the deferred payroll tax obligation and this this rental payment moratorium. I talked about that stuff because I gave people the real reality of what this really is, what it really looks like, and how it really plays out from an economic standpoint, from a personal finance standpoint, from a credit standpoint, how this is really going to play out for you long term, right? So, I definitely rewatched the video. I'm going to save this video, so definitely feel free to watch the video from the beginning. But as I was saying, I want you to feel like you guys can come and ask me anything when I pop up in these lives. Don't feel intimidated. Don't feel silly. Don't feel like you don't, have the sufficient amount of knowledge or whatever to talk to me. Like, I'm here for you guys. Like, I'm here to give you information. You know what I mean? Like, so the best way that I can serve you guys and the best way that I can help you get the information that's relevant to the general situation of your lives and help you grow and be better is if we have bilateral dialogue from time to time. Feel free to ask me questions. There's not one dumb question that you can ask except for the one that you don't. I take all questions. And if I don't know something, I'm not going to spin you. I'm not going to tell you or make up something that sounds good. I will tell you straight up, I don't have an answer for that question, but I'm going to do some research and get back to you. And I'm going to share what I find with everyone. I'll make some calls to relationships that I have on the street, etc., etc. We're going to get the answer, and I'm going to bring the answer back to you in a clear, concise, detailed way to help you out, right? It's just like one of the brothers in here asked me about Dave Ramsey. I can't comment on Dave Ramsey. I don't watch Dave Ramsey, so I don't know what he's talking about. So whether he was right or whether he was wrong is not something that I can sit up here and say because I don't watch him. And that's honest, right? You're going to always get the honest, straightforward, real from me. No chaser, no bullshit, no spin, no game, none of that. So let's see. We got another question coming in here. Let's see. Will we need to pay back payroll taxes? Will we need to pay back payroll taxes? Absolutely. This is not forgiveness. This is a deferral. You will get a tax bill. Think about it as if you started your job and you decided to file exempt for the whole year instead of, claiming the things you need to be claiming. In that aspect, you would be subject to a tax bill at the end of the year. This is very much that. So you do not have to. So you only qualify for this if you make less than $4,000 bi-weekly. You qualify for the option to defer your payroll tax obligation. It is not mandatory. You do not. Sorry about that, guys. I lost you there. But it is not mandatory. You do not have to elect that option if you qualify for the payroll tax deferral. You do not have to elect to do that. You can continue to pay your payroll taxes. And I'm telling you, it would be in your best interest to continue to pay your payroll taxes. Because here's the reality in our community, right? So we have some of the lowest savings to income ratios in the United States amongst all demographics. We also have the lowest credit ratios amongst all demographics. So while this seems like it's something that's going to help you out, this is indirectly another way to hurt you. Because if you get a large tax bill and we know as a community we have the lowest savings to income ratios, most of us, the average person in our community has roughly $1.50 in savings. So the reality of the situation is at the end of the year, if you get a $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 tax bill, do you have the money to be able to pay that? Probably not. So now you're going to have to work out a payment arrangement. You're going to get hit with interest and penalties. There are a lot of things to consider there. So this actually will hurt you long term. And these are the things you got to consider. Never cut off your own nose to spite your face. Never take a short-term benefit for long-term pain. It's never a good idea. There are no shortcuts to fixing problems. There are no shortcuts to success. There are no shortcuts in this life. You just have to go out there and get it. You got to go out there and do the things you got to do. You got to put the time in. You got to put the effort in. You got to gain the knowledge. You got to be willing to put in what you have to put in to get what you are trying to get long term in your life. Do not take short-term band-aid maneuvers. It's not a good idea. So that's my advice. That's my discussion for today. I appreciate everybody for coming in and hanging out with me a little bit today. If you have any questions, comments, concerns after I close this video, I'm more than happy. Feel free to DM me. I see some other questions coming in. Is now the time? Okay, no, hold on. Wait a minute. There are two questions. Please make sense. It's deferral, but Trump said would forgive them. Is it possible? Okay, so yeah, I know it's deferral, but Trump said would forgive them. Is it possible? Is it possible? It's possible. But then remember, and I want you to rewatch this video for this part because I did cover this part. Any type of forgiveness, I mean, that takes revenue out of the general revenue fund for the government, which general revenue fund, everything that comes in is from taxation. So if they forgive that, they actually have less revenue, so they're going to have to issue more dollars into the market to be able to do things, which is going to raise inflation. So even if they forgive it on this side, you'll pay for it in the loss of purchasing power, because instead of 3%, we might inflate 4 or 5%. So you're still going to pay for it either way. See what I'm saying? So that's kind of that. So, nothing free. Again, no free lunch. You pay for it one way or the other. And there are multiple ways to get hit. And understanding how economics works, and understanding how GDP works, and understanding how businesses and governments run really helps you understand the different ways that even though you get something now, there's a way for you to get hit later, right? So you got to look it all the way through. And that's what I'm here to do, help you look it all the way through. Anyway, guys, I appreciate everyone for taking the time. If you have any questions, please feel free to DM me anytime. I'll get to you as soon as I can. And I hope everybody has a great day. Feel free to watch this video again. I'm going to load it to YouTube. It'll be on my Instagram page. Like me, follow me, subscribe, tell your friends about me. That's the greatest thank you can give me, is to just help me grow my audience so more people can get this free information, so I can help as many people as I can save themselves some heartaches. So, that's that. Last question, I sent it in. Can I summarize my story? That will come. I definitely will summarize my story in due time. I can assure you that I will be summarizing my story. It's actually going to be in my biography. I'm actually writing a book. So there's that. So, but I have 14 years in finance, a little over 14 years at this point in finance. So, yeah. So I've been around the finance industry for a little over 14 years now, and I've gone pretty far. I started back in 2006, actually. So I started my career in finance in 2006. And at that time, I'm 30, I'll be 36 this month. So what are we in, 2020 now? So how old would that have made me? Like 24, 23, somewhere around in there? Oh, feel free. Feel free to send me a direct message. I'm fine with that. So guys, again, thank you so much for spending time. I will see you guys on Sunday. I would advise everyone, I encourage everyone to show up Sunday, 3 p.m. for part 2 of Understanding Credit, because this is the thing that is going to be a very, very, very important thing for you in the near future. A lot of people's credit is going to get hurt by a lot of the things that are happening right now. You will need this knowledge to be able to begin to dig yourself out of the credit situations that you're going to find yourselves in here shortly. So I encourage everyone to show up. Again, the greatest thank you that you can give me is to tell as many people as you can about me, so that way they can, learn these things. I give it away for free. It's what I do. So, like, subscribe, follow, leave nice comments, all of those great things. That's what I appreciate the most. Thank you so much, guys. You guys have a wonderful evening.